The mining colony was always noisy, filled with the sounds of machines digging into the red soil, ships coming and going, and traders shouting their prices. But in one quiet corner of the colony, there was a girl who never joined the crowd. She was taller than almost everyone, her shoulders broad, her arms strong, her steps heavy. She was not human. She belonged to an alien species known for their size and power, but even among her kind she was considered too large, too heavy, too strange. Her name was Lyra, and wherever she walked, whispers followed her. Some laughed behind her back, others spoke in cruel tones. Not breeding material, they said. Her body is too big. No mate will want her. Those words had been repeated so many times that she started to believe them. She began to hide from the world, working alone, eating alone, and sleeping in the farthest corner of the barracks one evening. As the sun set behind the sharp alien mountains, a human man named Daniel noticed her. He had seen her many times before, always working, always silent. But something about the way she lowered her head, as if she carried the whole world's shame on her shoulders, made him pause. He was just a miner. Rough hands, tired eyes, but he had a heart that could not ignore suffering. Daniel walked closer, carrying a heavy metal crate on his back. He placed it down near her. She looked at him in surprise. Humans rarely spoke to her. He gave her a small smile. "That's a lot of weight you're carrying alone," he said, his voice steady. "Need a hand?" Lyra shook her head quickly, her voice low. "I can manage," she said, her tone almost defensive, as if she feared kindness was another form of mockery. Daniel did not press. He simply nodded and went back to his own work. But something had already begun. A spark that neither of them noticed yet. The next day, it happened again. Daniel saw her struggling with a broken tool. The handle cracked, the blade dull. She tried to fix it with her huge hands, but it slipped. He stepped forward without asking. "Here, let me," he said, taking the tool, his smaller hands moving quickly and carefully. In minutes it was fixed. He handed it back to her. She stared at him, confused. Why are you helping me?" she asked softly. Daniel shrugged. "Because I can," he said. As if it was the most natural thing in the world, Lyra looked down, her chest heavy. No one ever helped her without expecting something in return. Her people only reminded her of what she lacked, not what she had. She wanted to speak, to say thank you, but the words got lost in her throat that night. Lyra sat outside her quarters, the alien sky filled with twin moons glowing silver. She thought about the human, his simple words, his quiet strength. But then the old voices echoed again in her head. "You are not fit, you are not worthy. No male will ever claim you." She clenched her fists, her body trembling. She hated herself for even hoping someone could see her differently. Meanwhile, Daniel lay awake in his small cabin, his mind drifting back to the alien girl. He had worked with humans and aliens for years. But she was different. There was sadness in her eyes that no one seemed to notice, or maybe no one cared. He wondered what her story was, why she kept herself so far from everyone. The next day, fate placed them together again. A cargo lift broke down. Heavy boxes stuck halfway up. Workers shouted, but no one dared climb the unstable platform. Lyra stepped forward, her size and strength making her the only one capable. She grabbed the ropes, her muscles straining as she pulled the boxes down. Everyone watched in silence, some with awe, others with hidden laughter. "Look at her size," one alien muttered. "Good for lifting things, not for family." The words stabbed into her heart like knives. Daniel heard them, his jaw tightening. When Lyra finished and walked away quickly, trying to escape the shame, he followed. "Don't listen to them," he said firmly. She froze, turning to him, her eyes wide. "You heard?" she whispered. He nodded. "I heard, and I don't agree with them." Lyra's throat tightened. She wanted to tell him to go away, to stop giving her false hope. But his eyes were honest. No pity, no mockery, only truth. For the first time in her life, someone had said out loud that maybe she was more than what others told her she was. As she turned away, hiding the trembling in her chest, Daniel watched her, a quiet determination growing in him. He did not know why, but he could not let her remain in the shadows. He would keep reaching out, even if she pushed him away. The colony lights flickered as night fell. Machines hummed in the distance, and two lives that were never meant to cross had already begun to weave together. But neither of them knew where this path would lead. Not yet, Lyra whispered to herself as she lay down. Why him? Why now? But her heart for the first time beat not with shame, but with a fragile spark of hope, and Daniel, staring at the ceiling of his cabin, whispered, "She deserves better," not knowing that this was only the beginning of something that would change both their lives forever. The mining colony woke up early. Machines roared again, dust filled the air, and workers hurried to their posts. Lyra kept her head down as always, carrying her heavy tools to the deep tunnels. She wanted no one's attention. The fewer eyes on her, the safer she felt. But even when she tried to disappear, one pair of human eyes always found her. Daniel was already waiting near the tool racks, his clothes stained from yesterday's work, his hands scarred from years of lifting and fixing. But his smile was steady, calm when he saw her walk past. He nodded as if greeting an old friend. "Morning," he said simply. Lyra blinked. No one usually spoke to her first, most avoided her. She gave the smallest nod and walked on, but Daniel was not discouraged. He picked up his own tools and followed toward the tunnels. Inside, the air was thick and hot. Rocks grinding, lights flickering in the dust. Lyra worked quickly, her strong arms breaking stone and loading carts. Daniel worked beside her, slower, smaller, but steady. He did not try to match her strength instead. He filled the silence with small words. "You're fast," he said once. "Makes the rest of us look lazy." She looked at him, confused. "Are you mocking me?" She asked sharply, her tone defensive. He shook his head, wiping sweat from his forehead. "No, I mean it. You work harder than anyone here." His voice carried no sarcasm, only honesty. Lyra turned away, her chest heavy. No one had ever praised her work before. At lunch, most workers gathered together. Eating and joking loudly, Lyra sat alone on the far side, her meal plain, her eyes fixed on the ground. Daniel noticed and carried his tray across the room. Sitting opposite her, the room grew quiet for a moment, whispers rising. "The human sits with her?" One alien muttered, another laughed. "He must be desperate." But Daniel ignored them. "You always sit alone," he said, chewing calmly. "Don't like company?" Lyra stiffened. "Company doesn't like me," she answered. Her voice low, Daniel studied her face. The sadness hidden in her sharp eyes. He spoke softly. "Then they're blind, because I see someone worth sitting with." Her hands froze, the bread in her fingers forgotten. She could not remember the last time anyone had said something kind without cruelty hiding behind it. She tried to speak, but words refused to come, so she stayed silent, eating slowly. But her heart beat faster than usual. Days turned into a quiet pattern. Daniel kept finding small reasons to help her. Once, when her water pack broke. He shared his without hesitation. Once, when her work gloves tore. He offered his spare. Lyra resisted at first, telling him she did not need help. But Daniel only smiled and said, "Doesn't matter if you need it. Sometimes it's just nice to have it." Each act felt small, but to her they were heavy. Heavier than all the cruel words she had carried for years. One evening, when the shift ended, Daniel found her outside the colony fence, sitting under the twin moons, her broad shoulders slumped, her hands digging into the dirt. He walked quietly and sat beside her. The silence stretched, filled only by the hum of machines in the distance. Finally, he asked, "Why do you always look like the world is crushing you?" Lyra's throat tightened. She wanted to lie, to hide the truth, but something in his voice made her speak. "Because it is," she whispered. "My people, they say I am too big, too heavy, too different. No one wants me, not even as a mate. I'm a failure." Daniel turned to her, his face calm but his eyes burning. "A failure? You carry weights no one else can. You work harder than everyone. You help keep this colony alive, and you think that makes you a failure?" She looked away, her chest rising and falling. "Strength doesn't matter to them, only breeding does, only fitting the shape they expect." Her voice cracked, and she hid her face in her hands, ashamed of letting him see her weakness. Daniel hesitated for a moment, then reached out, placing a hand on her shoulder, his touch gentle against her massive frame. "Maybe they don't see, but I do. You're more than what they say, and you're not alone anymore." Her breath caught. She wanted to push his hand away, to remind him that she was dangerous, unworthy, cursed, but she didn't. Instead, she let the warmth sink in, her heart trembling with fear and hope mixed together. That night, when she returned to her quarters, she lay awake, staring at the ceiling, his words echoing in her mind. "You're not alone anymore." It was dangerous to believe, dangerous to hope. Yet she could not stop the small spark inside her chest. Meanwhile, Daniel sat in his cabin, his fists clenched. He hated the way others looked at her, the way they whispered as if she were less. He thought of her strength, her silence, her hidden pain, and he made a silent promise to himself. He would not stop. He would keep showing her that she was worth more than the cruel names they gave her. The colony around them remained the same. Cold metal walls, endless work, harsh voices. But between two hearts, something was beginning to change. slow, fragile, but powerful, and as the moons rose higher, shining down on both of them in different corners of the colony, either knew that this kindness, these small acts, were only the first steps toward something far greater, something that would challenge everything they both believed about themselves and about love. The days at the mining colony blurred together. The endless noise of drills, the smell of burning fuel, the taste of dust in every breath, yet for Lyra something had shifted. She still walked with her head low, her broad frame drawing stares, but now one human always crossed her path, always found her no matter how much she tried to hide. Daniel was persistent, not in a loud or forceful way, but in a steady, patient rhythm. He spoke to her when others stayed silent. He smiled when others looked away. He treated her as if she was not a shadow, but a person worth noticing, and that was more dangerous to her heart than any insult. One evening, the sky turned a strange orange as the suns dipped behind jagged mountains. Workers left in groups laughing, but Lyra stayed behind. Finishing her shift alone, Daniel lingered too. Though his own work was done, he watched her shoulders rise and fall as she lifted crates twice his size. Her strength impressive, but her face carved with sadness. When she finally set the last crate down, he walked up slowly. "You work more than anyone here," he said. "Don't you ever rest?" Lyra wiped dust from her brow, not meeting his eyes. "Rest is for those who matter," she answered softly, almost bitterly. Daniel frowned. "And you don't?" She froze, his words like a spark hitting dry wood. She wanted to shout, to tell him he did not understand, but the fire inside her was too fragile. She only shook her head, whispering, "No, I don't," before turning away. That night she went to the edge of the colony, where the fence met the wilderness, the alien wind cold against her skin. She sat under the glowing moons, staring at the stars, her heart heavy. She thought of her people's cruel judgment, the words carved into her since childhood. Too big, too strange, not breeding material. She wrapped her arms around herself, as if she could shrink, as if she could disappear. Daniel found her there, his footsteps crunching softly over gravel. She stiffened, not turning. "Go away," she said, her voice rough. But he sat beside her anyway, his presence quiet but firm. "Why should I?" he asked gently. "Because I don't need pity," she said quickly, her hands clenching. "I don't need your kindness. I don't need lies," her voice cracked, but Daniel did not flinch. "I haven't lied to you," he said calmly. "And it's not pity, it's respect." Her breath caught. She turned to look at him for the first time in the moonlight, his face tired but steady, his eyes holding something she had never seen before. Truth without judgment, warmth without agenda. It terrified her. "You don't understand," she whispered, her voice trembling. "You can't understand, my body is too big. My people laugh at me, no one wants me, I will never be chosen. Never." Her chest ached as she said the words, as if speaking them made the wound bleed all over again. Daniel listened, silent for a long moment. Then he said softly, "Maybe your people are blind. Maybe they don't see what I see." Her throat tightened. "And what do you see?" she asked, expecting mockery. Expecting cruel humor, he leaned forward, his voice low, steady. "I see someone strong, someone who carries more than anyone else. Not just with your arms, but with your heart. I see someone who deserves more than loneliness." Her hands trembled. Her eyes burned. She wanted to push him away, to tell him to stop breaking down the walls she had built for years. But instead she lowered her face into her hands, a sound escaping her lips, a sound between a sob and a laugh. "Why are you doing this?" she asked. "Because you matter," Daniel said, without hesitation. The words struck deeper than anything she had ever heard, more dangerous than insults, more frightening than loneliness. Because for the first time in her life, someone dared to believe she was worthy of love. Silence stretched, filled only by the distant hum of machines and the soft whisper of wind across alien soil. Slowly, carefully, Daniel reached out, his hand brushing against hers, his warmth small against her large fingers. She flinched, but she did not pull away. In that fragile moment, something cracked inside her. A wall she thought unbreakable. She did not look at him. She could not, but she allowed the touch, her heart racing like it never had before. The next morning, whispers spread across the colony. Some had seen them sitting together under the moons. Already voices rose with mockery. "The human sits with the giant," one laughed. "He'll be crushed," another sneered. "She's desperate." "And he's foolish." The words stung when they reached Lyra's ears. But when she looked at Daniel, he only smiled and said, "Let them talk." It confused her, it shook her. How could he not care? She carried shame like a heavy stone, but he seemed to carry none of it. His calmness was a shield, and somehow, he placed that shield over her too. That night she lay awake in her bed, her eyes fixed on the ceiling, her hands pressed to her chest. She whispered to herself, "Why is he different? Why does he not see me the way others do?" In his cabin, Daniel whispered too. Though no one heard, "I'll keep breaking those walls. Until she believes me." The colony slept. The machines rested, but two hearts, human and alien, beat with a rhythm that was no longer separate, though neither fully understood it yet. And somewhere deep inside, beneath all the shame, all the fear, a small, dangerous hope began to grow, a hope that could change everything. Morning in the colony began with noise, clanging metal, engines rumbling and voices shouting orders, but for Lyra, the sound that cut deeper than any machine was laughter, cruel and sharp. It came from a group of workers as she walked past with her heavy cart. "There goes the giant," one alien whispered loudly enough for all to hear. "Strong arms, but no mate will ever want her," another added with a sneer. "She's fit for carrying stone, not children." The words followed her like shadows. Lyra kept her head down, her heart pounding. She wanted to disappear. Her chest tightened until it was hard to breathe. She had heard these words all her life, but now they burned more than ever. Because Daniel had seen her the night before. He had touched her hand, and for the first time she had dared to hope. Daniel stood nearby, hearing every word, his jaw tightening, his fist clenching. He could not stay silent, his voice cut through the noise. "Enough," he said firmly. The workers froze, surprised. "If you have nothing useful to say, then shut your mouths." His tone was sharp. His eyes steady, whispers spread instantly. Humans rarely challenged aliens here, but Daniel didn't care. His gaze never left Lyra. She looked at him in shock, shame mixing with a strange warmth. No one had ever defended her before, not like this later. When the shift ended, Lyra confronted him, her voice low but heavy. "Why did you do that?" she asked. "Now they'll mock you too," Daniel shrugged, his face calm. "Let them. Their words don't change the truth." Her throat tightened. She wanted to argue, to tell him he was foolish, but deep inside, the wall she had built cracked a little more that night. The colony gathered in the central square for trade, lights glowing, music humming, aliens and humans mingling. Lyra stayed at the edge, as always, her massive frame making her feel out of place. But Daniel walked straight to her side. "Come," he said. "Walk with me." She shook her head quickly, panic flashing in her eyes. "No. If they see us, they already see us," Daniel interrupted softly. "So let's stop hiding." Before she could protest, he gently took her hand, his small fingers closing around hers. The contact sent a shock through her. Her breath catching, everyone turned, whispers rose. "The human with her?" One alien gasped. "Impossible," another sneered. "He must be mad." Laughter rippled across the square, cruel and mocking. Lyra froze, her whole body trembling. She wanted to pull away, to run, but Daniel held on, his voice calm but loud enough to carry. "I'm not ashamed," he said, "not of her." The crowd fell silent for a moment. Stunned, then the laughter grew harsher. Some pointed, some muttered, but Daniel's words had already carved themselves into her chest. Stronger than their cruelty, she whispered urgently, her voice breaking. "Please, let go, they'll never stop." Tears threatened to spill, her shame unbearable. But Daniel turned to her, his eyes firm. "Then let them see," he said, "because I see you. And I won't look away." The words struck like lightning, the world spinning around her. The judgment of the colony loud and heavy, but in his grip, there was a strength she had never known. That night, alone in her quarters, Lyra cried silently, her large hands covering her face. She hated herself for being weak, for caring so much about one human's words, but she also felt something she had never dared to feel. Hope, dangerous and bright. Meanwhile, Daniel sat in his small cabin, replaying the moment again and again. The laughter, the stares, the weight of their judgment. But he felt no regret. Instead, he felt a fire in his chest. He would stand by her. No matter how many laughed, the next morning, whispers spread faster than smoke. The human claimed her, they said. He stood by her in front of everyone. Some laughed. Some scoffed, others simply shook their heads. But Lyra walked through the colony with trembling steps. Daniel at her side, she whispered to him, almost in pain. "Why? Why are you doing this?" Daniel looked at her, his voice steady. "Because you are worth it." Her eyes burned, her heart racing, the words too much to believe, yet impossible to ignore. By the end of the day, she sat alone again under the twin moons, The stars burning above, she whispered into the night. He doesn't understand. I'm not what he thinks I am, her chest heavy with fear but far across the colony. Daniel whispered too. I'll prove it to her. Even if it takes forever. The colony thought it was a joke, a story to laugh at. But neither of them knew that what began as whispers of mockery would soon turn into something that would shake every belief in that place. Because sometimes love does not wait for permission. It simply grows, even in the harshest soil. The days after the public scene felt heavier for Lyra. Wherever she walked, eyes followed her, some filled with mockery, others with curiosity. Whispers trailed behind like chains. The human still walks with her, they said. Doesn't he see what she is? Some laughed, others sneered. But Daniel's steady presence never changed. He stayed by her side, calm and unshaken. For Lyra, this was worse than being invisible. She had grown used to loneliness, to being ignored, but now she felt exposed. The whole colony watching her, judging her. She wanted to hide again, to bury herself in shadows. Yet every time she tried to pull away, Daniel found her, his quiet strength refusing to let her sink. One evening, after a long day in the tunnels, Lyra slipped away to the edge of the colony. She thought no one saw her leave. But Daniel followed at a distance. He knew the path by now. The same spot under the twin moons where she often sat alone. Tonight the sky was cloudless, stars burning bright, the silence deep. She sat with her knees drawn close, her massive frame bent forward, her voice a whisper to the empty air. Why does he stay? Why can't he see what I am? Daniel stepped forward, his boots crunching softly. Maybe because I see more than you think, he said gently. Lyra stiffened, turning quickly, her eyes wide. You shouldn't be here, she said, her tone sharp, but her hands trembled. He didn't move away. Instead, he sat down beside her. Not too close, not too far. I'll go if you want me to, he said. But something tells me you don't really want that. She stared at him, her chest rising and falling. Then she looked away, her voice low, shaking. You don't understand, Daniel, you can't. Then help me understand, he replied quietly. For a long moment, silence stretched between them, the moons casting silver light across her face. She clenched her fist, her whole body trembling. Then at last, the words burst out of her heavy and raw. My body is too big, human, she whispered, her voice breaking. I am not breeding material. I am not what a female is supposed to be. No mate will ever want me. No family will ever claim me. I am a failure to my people. Her throat burned, tears welled in her eyes. She had never spoken the words aloud to anyone, and now they tore free like a wound opening wide. Daniel sat still, his heart aching at her pain. He did not laugh, he did not pity. He only listened. When she finished, her breath shuddering, her shoulders shaking, he spoke softly. Each word like stone laid carefully. Lyra, he said. Your people may not see you, but I do. And I don't care about their rules. Their judgment or their traditions, I don't care what they call you. I only know what I see. Her eyes snapped to his, searching for mockery, but his gaze was steady, his voice calm. And what do you see? She asked, her voice trembling as if daring him to lie. He leaned closer, his voice low, almost a whisper. I see a woman stronger than anyone I've met. I see someone who works harder than anyone else. I see someone who carries pain yet still stands. I see someone I care about. Her chest tightened. Her breath caught. She looked away quickly, hiding the tears burning in her eyes. You're a fool, she whispered, but her voice cracked, betraying her. Daniel reached out slowly, carefully, his hand touching hers, his warmth against her cold skin. She tried to pull away, but this time he didn't let go. Not roughly, not forcefully, just firmly enough. Maybe I am, he said. But I'd rather be a fool than blind. Her walls, built over years of cruelty, cracked again, wider this time. She let out a sound, half a sob, half a laugh. Why? Why would you care about someone like me? Because you matter, Daniel said simply. You've always mattered, even if no one told you. Even if you don't believe it yet. You matter to me. The words hit her harder than any insult, harder than any stone. Her tears fell freely now. She covered her face with her large hands, her body trembling. Daniel didn't move, didn't push, he only stayed, his hand still holding hers, his presence unshaken. Minutes passed, maybe hours, until her breathing slowed, her voice soft, almost too quiet to hear. No one has ever said that to me before. Then I'll say it again, Daniel answered gently. And again, until you believe it. The night air wrapped around them, the moons glowing above, and for the first time in her life, Lyra felt something stronger than shame. Hope, fragile and terrifying, but real. When she finally looked at him, her eyes wet with tears. Her voice was soft. "Daniel, I don't know how to be what you see." "You don't have to be anything," he said with a small smile. "Just be you, that's enough." Her heart raced. Her chest heavy, she wanted to believe. She wanted to trust, and though fear whispered in her ear, she held on to his hand. Not letting go that night under the stars, Lyra confessed her deepest shame. And Daniel answered with the truth she had never been allowed to hear. It did not erase the cruelty of her people. It did not silence the whispers of the colony, but it planted something new inside her heart, something dangerous and beautiful. And though she did not know it yet, this confession was the first step toward a miracle that would change both their lives forever. The colony woke under gray skies, storms brewing over the mountains, the air thick and heavy. Work carried on as usual, drills biting into the rock, carts rolling along dusty tracks. But inside Lyra's chest something had shifted, something she could not explain. For weeks after her confession, Daniel never left her side, his words echoing again and again. "You matter. You're enough." She carried them like fire in her chest, yet fear still clung to her, whispering that this could not last, that soon even he would see her as her people did. But then small changes began. At first she thought it was exhaustion, her body slowing, her breath shorter, her heart beating strangely. She told herself it was nothing. She had carried heavy weights all her life. She could endure more. Yet when the mornings came, she felt a new heaviness, not of shame but of life. One evening, she stumbled while lifting a crate. Her knees trembling, Daniel rushed to her side. "You're overworking again," he said firmly, guiding her to sit. "You need to rest." "I don't need rest," she whispered, her voice sharp with fear. "I can't if I stop. They'll laugh more." "Let them," Daniel said, his tone steady. "You're more important than their laughter." She lowered her head, unable to argue, his hand steady on her shoulder, his concern real, no mockery hidden beneath that night. As she sat alone under the moons, her hands pressed against her stomach, a strange realization made her breath catch. It couldn't be, it shouldn't be possible. Yet the signs whispered the truth. Her people had told her again and again she was too big, too strange, not fit to bear children, but now something stirred within her. Tears welled in her eyes, not of shame, but of fear and wonder. She whispered into the silence, "No, it cannot be. It's impossible." The next day, Daniel noticed her silence, her distracted gaze. "What's wrong?" he asked gently. Lyra froze, her throat tight. She wanted to hide, to bury the truth, but his eyes were steady. Patient, waiting, finally she whispered, her voice trembling. "Daniel, something is happening to me. Something I was told could never happen." She placed her hand over her stomach, her heart racing. Daniel's eyes widened, the meaning sinking in. "Lyra, are you saying?" Her voice broke. I carry life," the words spilled. "Fragile, filled with terror, but it's impossible. My people said I could never." Daniel reached forward, his hands covering hers, his voice firm but filled with awe. "Then they were wrong." Her breath shuddered, tears falling freely. "If this is true, they'll hate me more. They'll say the child should not exist. They'll try to take it away, to destroy it. Then they'll have to go through me first," Daniel said, his jaw set, his voice low. "I will protect you. And our child," the word stunned her. She had never dared to call it that. Our child, the thought alone sent fear and warmth through her veins. She shook her head, whispering, "Do you understand what this means? A child born of human and alien. They will never accept it." Daniel looked at her, his eyes burning with quiet fire. "Then let them choke on their disbelief, because nothing will stop me from standing with you." For the first time in her life, Lyra let herself lean against someone, her broad shoulders trembling as she allowed herself to rest against Daniel. The weight of fear and hope mixing together. Weeks passed, the signs grew clearer. Her body changing, whispers spreading. "Have you heard?" The giant female grows heavy. Is it possible? Some laughed, some sneered. Others whispered in hushed tones. But everywhere she walked, eyes followed. Some aliens muttered darkly, "It cannot be allowed. A child like that will bring shame to us all." But Daniel's presence never wavered. He stood tall at her side, unafraid of their stares. One night, a group of workers confronted them in the square, their voices harsh. "What you carry should not live," one spat. "It is against nature." Lyra trembled, her hand instinctively protecting her stomach. But Daniel stepped forward, his voice like steel. "Say that again, and you'll regret it." The workers hesitated. Seeing the fire in his eyes, the crowd buzzed with whispers, but no one dared step closer. Later, when they were alone, Lyra whispered through tears, "Why do you keep fighting for me, Daniel? Why not leave before it's too late?" He looked at her, his hand resting gently over hers. "Because I love you," he said simply. Without hesitation, her breath caught, her whole body shaking. No one had ever spoken those words to her. Not once in her life. She stared at him, her tears falling. "I don't deserve it," she whispered. "You deserve everything," Daniel answered, his voice steady. "And now so does our child." That night, under the twin moons, Lyra closed her eyes, for the first time letting herself believe it, letting herself dream of a future where she was not broken, not unworthy, but loved. The miracle inside her grew, fragile yet unstoppable, a life that was never supposed to exist, yet now burned brighter than the cruelty of an entire colony. And though danger whispered from every corner, though judgment pressed down heavier than stone in Daniel's arms, she felt something she had never dared to feel before: safe. The storm over the mountains rolled closer, thunder rumbling across the sky. But inside Lyra's heart a different storm raged, one that would soon change everything, because miracles once born cannot be silenced. The storm finally came, heavy rain pouring over the mining colony, lightning flashing across the alien sky. Workers ran for cover. Machines hissed and crackled. But inside one quiet shelter, something greater than the storm was happening. Lyra lay on the rough bed, her massive frame trembling, pain coursing through her body, her breath short, her hands gripping the metal rails until they bent. Daniel knelt beside her, his face pale with worry but his grip firm on her hand. "Breathe with me," he whispered. "You're not alone." "Not anymore," she cried out, the sound raw. Echoing through the small room outside, whispers had gathered, aliens muttering in disbelief. "It cannot be true," one said. "She cannot give birth," another hissed. "If she does, it will shame us all." But no one dared enter. No one dared help. Inside, the hours dragged like years. Lyra fought against pain and fear. "I can't," she gasped, her voice breaking. "Daniel." "I can't," her body shook, her heart racing. "You can," he said firmly, his voice sharp but steady. "You've carried more than anyone. You're the strongest person I've ever known, and you won't break now." His words cut through the fear like fire through ice, and then, at last, the cry came, small but sharp, piercing the storm outside. The sound of life. Lyra's eyes widened, tears flooding as she looked down. In her arms lay the impossible, a child, small, fragile, yet alive, part human, part alien, its tiny hands curling against her chest. Her voice broke, a whisper filled with awe. I did it." Daniel's hand trembled as he touched the child gently, his eyes wet. "No, we did it," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. Outside, silence fell. The whispers of disbelief turned into stunned quiet. Aliens pressed against the windows, their eyes wide, their words lost. What they mocked as impossible was now undeniable. The child lived, proof that their cruel rules, their cruel words had been wrong. One alien elder stepped forward, his voice low. It should not be," but no strength filled his tone, only fear, because what stood before them was not weakness, not shame, but a miracle that shattered their traditions. Lyra sat up slowly, her arms wrapping protectively around the child, her voice no longer trembling. "You told me I was not worthy," she said, her tone strong. "You told me I was too big, too strange, not fit for life." She looked down at the child, her eyes burning. "But you were wrong. This life proves it." The crowd shifted uneasily. Some looked away, ashamed. Others stared in silence. Daniel stepped beside her, his hand resting on her shoulder, his voice steady. "You all mocked her, called her unfit. But she is stronger than all of you, and now she has given life where you said there could be none." His gaze swept over them. "This child is not shame, it is hope." The storm outside raged, but inside a new silence grew, not of cruelty but of awe. Lyra looked at Daniel, tears shining in her eyes. "You never let me go," she whispered, her voice filled with gratitude and love. "And now we are a family," Daniel smiled. "Tired but full of warmth, always," he said simply. In the days that followed, the whispers of mockery faded, replaced by whispers of wonder. The child drew stares wherever they went. Some still resisted, some still muttered, but none could deny the truth. The miracle could not be erased. For Lyra, Life changed forever. No longer did she walk with her head down. No longer did she hide in shadows. She carried her child with pride. Daniel always at her side at night under the twin moons. She often sat holding the baby close. Daniel beside her, the stars above burning bright. She would whisper softly, "I thought I was unworthy. I thought I would never be chosen, but now I know love." And in those moments she was no longer the giant they mocked. No longer the outcast they shamed. She was a mother, a partner, a woman who had defied an entire world. Her people had called her too big, too strange, not breeding material. But the truth lay in her arms, life born from love. And as Daniel watched her cradle their child, his heart full, he whispered words only she could hear. "They will write stories about us one day, but no story will ever tell how much I love you." She smiled through her tears, leaning against him, her voice soft. "And I will never stop loving you." The storm passed. The skies cleared, and in its place, a new dawn rose over the colony, not just for them, but for everyone who had witnessed the impossible. Because in the end, love had done what cruelty could not stop. It had created a new beginning.